Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I'm a marketing specialist here at Educate 360. Welcome to today's webinar, Data Analytics with Power BI, presented by our fantastic instructor, Ed McRae. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today, and I will now hand it over to you, Ed.
All right, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Ed McRae. I'm from New Horizons, and this is the Data Analytics with Power BI webinar. We have some wonderful things I want to share with you. During this webinar, we are going to talk about how to ingest, clean, and transform data. We'll talk about how to model data for performance and scalability, and we will deal with how to manage and deploy reports and dashboards for sharing and content distribution. Now, Power BI is, of course, a business intelligence solution. That's what the BI stands for in Power BI. And whenever we think about business intelligence, the purpose of business intelligence is basically all the things that are listed here on this agenda. We want to take raw, ugly, table-based, lots of data and make it so it's more palatable for the end user. Now, any business intelligence solution that you're going to use should allow us to do these four things. One, we need to be able to import data from multiple sources, right? So oftentimes that's going to mean Excel. That's a common source that people are using if they're not using Power BI. But really, any source that people want to pull information in from, we need to be able to pull that data in. Once we pull that data in, there is a good chance that it is not going to be set up properly for use inside of a data model. Now, this is especially true if you're coming from Excel, because in Excel, what we often do is create things based on what we want to see. We're not really thinking about database functionality and relationships and all those kinds of things. We just make it so, hey, I want to see all these things together. And that can cause some problems. So we need to have powerful tools in our solution that are going to allow us to manipulate and transform or clean up our data so it can be used in our data model. A business intelligence solution should be able to visualize data, right? Remember, we want to take our raw, ugly data and make it palatable for the end user. So we need to have different visualizations, charts and graphs and tables and filters, those kinds of things, so that people can understand the data a little bit better. And then lastly, we need to be able to share our data, right? What good is doing all this wonderful stuff for the end user if the end user can never access it? So we need to be able to share things out so that they can see it. And Power BI is, of course, going to allow us to do all four of these things. Now, there are three platforms or ways that we are able to access Power BI. First of all, Power BI is a part of Office 365, and so we can access it via the web. There's a Power BI web service. We also can access Power BI Desktop, which is going to be your local version of Power BI that can be downloaded and installed from the web service. And then lastly, you have Power BI Mobile, which is going to allow users to access Power BI and view pre-made content through your mobile devices. You're not going to create anything in Power BI Mobile, but you'll be able to view the reports and dashboards and things that you've been given access to. Now, if you're really going to take full advantage of all that Power BI has to offer in terms of creating stuff, you're going to need to use at least both the web service and the desktop version. There are certain things only the web service does. There's certain things only the desktop does, and there's some overlap between the two. And I want to talk about what that overlap and what those things are that each component does or each platform does as we understand the different components that are a part of Power BI. So the first component is the data set or the data model. Now, this is where everything starts. This is the data that is used in a Power BI report. So this is all the data that we've imported, we've related, and we have transformed. And this is going to be created using Power BI Desktop. All right. There are some data set features in the web service more than there used to be. There used to be literally none, but they've made it now so we can at least see the data model in the web service and we can do a little bit of manipulating, but you really don't have the number of options that you have in Power BI Desktop for importing data from different sources and for cleaning that data up, right? So Power BI Desktop is the weapon of choice for creating that data model that everything else we're going to do in Power BI is going to be based on. Then we have reports. Oftentimes, people confuse reports and dashboards. In my experience, most of the time when people say, "Oh, I want to create a dashboard, I need the dashboard," they're really talking about reports. Okay. So, what is a report? A report is a page based space to create visualizations out of your data set. So, this is where all our charts are created, all our tables are created, all the stuff that the end users are going to see and interact with are created in reports. This is where there's overlap. Reports can be made in both the browser and desktop versions of Power BI, right? So you're going to see the exact same reporting tools in both the desktop and in the web service, which is really cool. Only in the desktop can you manipulate your data, right? So again, the actual cleaning up of the data is what that's referring to there. Reports can be embedded into a web page, right? So you have a page-based space with all your visualizations. You can have multiple pages in a report, and there is overlap between the desktop and web service versions. And then lastly, we have the ever famous dashboards. These are free flowing spaces where you link in visualizations that were created in other reports. So there's no creating of visualizations in a dashboard. You're simply taking elements from other reports that you have access to and you are pinning them all together into this dashboard. So maybe, for example, you have 5 different sales reports for different areas of your organization, and you want to create a dashboard that shows the overall sales status of the organization as a whole. You can pin individual visualizations from those reports into this one space. And it's a free flowing space, so it's kind of like a whiteboard. You can move things around and arrange stuff however it is that you want things to be. Okay. Dashboards are only created in the Power BI web service. There are no dashboard options available in the desktop version of Power BI. This then is our common data flow in Power BI. We start with connecting to our data. We are then able to transform and combine our data, and those two things are happening again in Power BI Desktop. We can then explore and analyze our data. Now, as we said, we can create reports in both desktop and Power BI on web service. But at some point, we're going to need to publish our information from the desktop to the web service so that we can then create dashboards if we want to, and ultimately so we can share our data out with other users and use some of these other interactive tools for Power BI. All right, I want to show you some things here inside of the web service. Let's pull that up. Here's my Office 365 home screen. And from here, I can access Power BI. I'm going to go to my waffle up here in the upper left. Power BI is right there. Now, the only reason you would not see Power BI in here is either A, because you haven't used it yet, and so you have to go to explore all your apps to see it, or B, your organization has not granted you access to the license for Power BI, or they don't have Power BI currently as a part of their licensing, right? But once those things are in place, you will see Power BI show up in your list of applications. Give that a click and it brings us here into the web service. So I want to show you some examples of all those different components that we just talked about in our presentation. When you go into the web service, you are going to go into a workspace. So if I look down at the bottom here, I have two things. I have workspaces. Workspaces would be for other workspaces that were created for like your team or group, or workspaces created within your organization. All right. These are going to be places that multiple people have access to. You also have your personal workspace, and this is most likely what you're going to be using. The workspaces feature requires Power BI Premium, so we're most likely just going to be in our personal workspace and sharing things out from there. So I'm going to click on that, My Workspace. Oh boy, let's see some of the things that we've got in here. All right, so let's look at a data model first, shall we? We shall. Here's an example, and I've got a couple of them. I'll only show you one because it's going to be more of the same stuff. Let's take a look at this data model here. It's labeled semantic model. Let's look at that. And I can actually open the data model up here. And here we can see the actual tables and things that are a part of our data model. Now, if you are an Access user, or if you've used Power BI, I'm sorry, not Power BI, but Power Pivot inside of Excel, this is going to look very familiar to you. Same stuff. All right. I can see relationships. We can see the types of fields we have and all that kind of thing. I even could go back here and take a look at, actually, I should have just went back there. Let's get back into the model here. We could actually choose to look at the actual tables, and I could choose to see the information. Just check one of these tables off, and we can look at the data. And there it is. All right, not terribly exciting. All right, but this is the data that all of our reports and things for this data model are going to be based on. All right, so that's your data model. As you can see in here, we can have multiple data models published. I've got 3 different data models in here. You can have reports that are multiple reports based on the same model, and all that kind of thing, but all that stuff is happening here. All right, so now let's look at some reports. Let's look at a report based on this data model, and then I'll show you some reports based on these other data models that are in here as well. Let's look at our first report. All right, so this is cool. So we can see that our report has multiple visualizations inside of it. I can interact with these, right? So I can start clicking on stuff. Let's click on whatever region this is over here. And we notice that it filters all of our other visualizations for that. How about one of these subcategories? Let's click on running, right? It's filtering all this data for our running products. All right, that's cool. I've also got some slicers over here where I can interact, right? Where I can filter. Let's look at youth apparel. That's filtering everything for that. Let's look at youth apparel that was sold in 2017, right? I can adjust my sliders here. I could also just type the dates in, but I'm just going to adjust my sliders a bit for 2017. That's close enough. And there we go, right? It's filtering all that information, okay? So these are all things that can be built in. These things were done or were built in Power BI Desktop, but if I click Edit up here, you see that I can go ahead and design my report further right here in the web service. The exact same tools that I had when I created this report in Power BI Desktop are the same tools available to me right here in the web service, right? And I could make a change if I wanted to. Let's change something real quick. I'm going to change this guy. Let's say I want to change this into a clustered column chart. Let's see what that would look like. Cool. And let's say I wanted to stretch that out over here a little bit. That is marvelous. All right, so I'm able to do that. Let's say I want to stretch this stuff out too. All right, this is cool. And maybe I want to add another slicer in here. I have all these visualization tools here. Let's just grab another slicer and drop that in. There you are. You were hiding from me for a moment there. And let's say I want to be able to filter based on the customer region. Let's drop that in there. All right, and let's look at the properties of this. And let's make this look like a drop down as well. Cool, right? So we have the same editing capabilities in here as in Power BI Desktop, right? This is great. Let's go ahead and save this. All right, that is awesome. Okay, let's go and take a look. Oh, this report actually has some other pages in it as well. Let me reload this up because there are some other pages in there. All right, notice here's all my new stuff that I just added in. Let's go ahead and filter this for the southern US region. Whee! Look at that. Look at that map over there. That's wonderful. All right, this is great. Now I have these other pages over here, right? I've got a products page in this report, and I've got a sales by region and category. And of course, all these things can be adjusted as I see fit. Okay, back over to my workspace here. Let's look at another report. Let's look at this sports sales report. And we see a similar thing, some different visualizations. This is based on different data. Let's filter this by tennis and for customer Aaron Brown. Right, and I can see the exact things I want to see. This is great, right? So you guys get the idea. So we can go to all these different pages. I like this page. This is really cool. Nice map. Got some arrow pointing to a specific region I wanted to highlight. This is great. Let's look at another report, travel data report. All right, this one only has one page, but similar. I can come in here and interact with stuff and everything works. Now, from my report, if I go back, let's go back to the first report that we looked at, and then we'll take a look at a dashboard to finish things up here. From my report, if I look at the top here, there are several ways that I can then take this and share this information out. Okay, because remember, this is currently in my personal workspace. So the only way other people are going to be able to see this is if I share it with them. I can, of course, come here and I can export this. I can export it into Excel, I can export it to PowerPoint, can either embed it as a still image or embed live data. Can also export this as a PDF, right? This is awesome. I have a share feature here where I can go ahead and share this out, right? Now it's going to want me to upgrade my license here in order to do that, right? In your world, if that's something that you needed to be able to do, you would have the licensing to do that. But I could share this with other folks within my organization and they'd be able to see the data. I won't click on this, but I could also choose to share or chat about this data in Teams. I also have the option to subscribe to this report so I could begin to get alerts and such if things were changing in or about the report itself. All right. So very easy to get this information out. Now, one of the things I can do also is I could make a report available inside of a SharePoint page. Let me show you an example of that. Here's a SharePoint page, and you can see that I've got that same report sitting here in this SharePoint page. Right, and you can see that it has updated, right? The changes that I made to that page are already here, right? And users can come in and switch between pages and interact and all that kind of wonderful stuff. All right. So this is great. And this is simply a web part inside of a SharePoint page for you SharePoint users out there. All right, let's lastly take a look at what a dashboard would look like. Now, you may have noticed that when I was hovering over these visualizations, there was a little pin that popped up here on each of these visualizations that says pin visual. And if I were to click on that, it would allow me to pin this visual into a dashboard. I could pin it into an existing dashboard of my choice. Now, I've only got one, so not much to choose from here. Or I could pin it into a brand new dashboard if that's what I wanted to do. I'm not going to pin anything here. I already have the things in my dashboard that I want. So let's take a look at our sales dash. All right, and here is our sales dashboard. It's a free-flowing space, right? So I could move stuff around if I wanted to. I've got everything nice and compact over here. If I wanted, I could start moving stuff around. All right, grab this, move it around, make this larger if I want. All right, this is cool. Maybe I want to pin something else in there to take the place of what is what I just got rid of. So let's go back over here and why don't we actually pin something from a different report? Let's go to our travel data report. Not our travel data, sorry. Let's go to our sports sales data report. That's what I'm looking for. And I think I'd like to grab this guy. Man, that's a little bit. Let's grab this sales by category. And let's say I want to pin this into the sales dash. Then went ahead and pinned it in there. And go back to the sales dash. Here it is. Oh, I actually already had that. So let's actually delete that tile. Let's pin something else. That was already in there. Let's grab this map. Let's pin that into the sales dash. We'll put that right up there, and there we go, right? So as you can see, very easy to get stuff in and out of the dashboard. We have a nice free-flowing space. I can move things around, adjust it, size it, however it is I want to. Same thing up here. I could choose to share this out. I could choose to chat in Teams. I could also start to ask questions about my data. Let's see, average units per month. I don't think it likes the word units here. Let's say average sales per month. It'll like that. There we go. Now it's going to start showing me stuff like that. How about average quantity? It should like that. There we go. Quantity per month. It's giving me a table. It's not really showing me much, but you get the idea. I could start asking questions in plain English, and it's going to go ahead and analyze that data and start to display some things for me, right? So this is what it looks like in a dashboard. And again, we could ultimately share this out or subscribe to our dashboard as well. All right, my friends, I hope that this has been able to give you some good information into what Power BI is and what we would use it to do. I want to thank you for attending this webinar, and I want to encourage you to visit newhorizons.com for more information so you can learn more things or maybe experience other courses or other webinars. Thank you so much.